Hi, I'm Angela Dias, the host of the latest edition of Behind the Scenes with LTM. You know, for many actors, their character comes into sharper focus once they're in costume. The people in today's video help to create that transformation. Pat Sloan, Ellie Stargardter, Rob Williamson, and Moonyean Field design, build, and look for costumes at LTM and other theaters. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. All right, we're going to start with the basic. What does a costumer or a costume designer do? We'll start with you first, Pat.
It depends with the situation of the play and show. To me, as a costumer, if it's a small show or even a big show that you can rent costumes and whatever, to me, I would put myself as a costumer because I'm taking somebody else's work into mine, doing some alterations here and there, but basically is taking something else and introducing into your own play and whatever. As a costume designer is totally different. In my perspective is I would design, I would create whatever the directors would want, color palette and what style they wanted, what period, what year. And from there is make my own designs.
So Moonyean, what is your role in this whole process of costuming a show?
As a costumer, I'm fully responsible for all the costumes in the show that we are presenting. That doesn't mean I build them all, but I make all the decisions about them. And I don't know, I think people sometimes just use costume designer and costumer interchangeably. I mean, even if you look at like film and the person who says costume designer, there's a lot of designers who shop their show. I mean, they're doing a modern day show and they're not building those or drawing them like you would in New York. So I think in community theaters, we don't have a whole lot of people who, unlike Pat, who has great skills on all levels, who will design and draw and then create, you know.
And Ellie, how do you see your role in the whole business of costuming a show?
I'm definitely a costumer. So I'm the sort of person who picks out pieces and puts them together to create a costume. I mean, certainly, you know, you can make a shawl or make a tie or that sort of thing. But, you know, I have never really sat down and drawn a costume and said, this is what I want the person to look like. I don't have that kind of training. As a matter of fact, I have absolutely no training. So I know how to sew, and I can certainly scour our attic and go to stores and pick out pieces and put costumes together. So that's pretty much the role that I take.
Okay, Rob, what does a costumer or a costume designer do? What's your definition of it?
A costume designer and costumer, it's kind of an interchangeable term, but if you have to put really a solid definition on it, I would agree with what Pat and Moonyean and Ellie have all said, which is a costume designer is going to be building things from the ground up more than just going out and pulling from a thrift store or just a general costume stock. They're going to be spending more time focused on the full conceptual idea of the show as opposed to just what are the necessaries that these people really need.
So when you, Rob, are asked to costume a show and you get the script for the show, what are you looking for in that script that will help you come up with costumes for the characters in the show?
Well, there are so many things. When I go to read a script, I will read it first just to read the show and get an understanding of what it's about, whether it's a comedy, whether it's a tragedy. And then I will go back and do a second read and look for the context clues within the script, indications in dialogue. Does this take place does this particular scene take place during the day, or is it an evening scene? In a period piece, is the person in mourning? Are they going to be wearing all black, or is it a full ridiculous party gown where they can be in all the color and drama that you want?
When you look through the script, obviously you have to look at time periods, what era is this? How realistic is this? I mean, I like to do research into the time periods that the script sets the thing. And even I do pretty much exclusively musicals, but and so even though a lot of times you take liberties when you're in a musical from the actual historical, what people would have worn out on the street. But I also like to start there. I like to see what was actually happening at that time and go from there.
Now, on the show, it depends if it's a musical, you have to have clothing that is manageable on stage for dancing, especially like Mamma Mia. You had to have a lot of fabrics that were stretchy and whatever to do a lot of the different movements, and you can't put somebody in a tight skirt when they have a split to do or are jumping around. So between directors, between the director that's doing dancing and whatever, it's very important to know their feedback as to what is going on the script at what time, and how they will manage in that costume.
So pretty much, you sit down and you talk to the director. The directors sometimes have a very good idea of what it is they want. I know I costumed a company at LTM, and the director said to me, I want all the costumes in black and white. And I thought, oh, all right. Well, I mean, that was his image and his vision. So that's what we ended up doing. I mean, certainly, when you look at a script and the script says, oh, so-and-so enters a room and they toss a coat over a couch or something. Well, then, you've got to have the person enter the stage wearing the coat. So that sort of thing, the script pretty much gives you the detail that you need. But other than that, I think it's picking the brain of the director.
And how do you communicate your ideas to the director? Is it like a constant flow, or I imagine it has to do with the director, doesn't it?
I have some really great directors that I've worked with a number of times, and we have a good working relationship. I use picture boards sometimes that I'll put out on Pinterest, or I'll just keep in my phone or on my computer, of things I've seen that I found interesting, and sort of just check in with the director. I'm saying, I'm leaning toward this, or I'm leaning toward this kind of a thing. And then when I find certain things, I often will bring them to the director before I even show them to the actor and say, am I in the same ballpark? Are we thinking on the same lines? On the
same, about the same page as Moonyean. I go and ask them. First of all, we start talking about what type, what year, what period they want, what color palette they want, how modern, how old, and then from there I go around, and if it's something that we don't have to build and whatever, then I will take pictures. We'll go to different places, take pictures of the costumes or of something that would be probable, that it would be good, that would even sometimes go over the top, but it really fits in well.
And I do so many sketches. I love to sketch. There are a lot of designers that don't necessarily sketch a huge amount. And that's not an issue, but I will draw 3 or 4 different versions of a character, choose the one I like the best and bring it in to present. And if the director doesn't like it, I'll go back and pull another one and bring it in. I do like to have a very open and constant communication with the director about where things are going, because it is, in the end, it is their vision, and I am helping to create that.
What's your process, Ellie, for communicating
Sure.
costume ideas with a director?
Well, at LTM, we have production meetings, and the production meetings are usually every other week. And so we get together, the tech people, the sound people, the lighting people, the costumers. And at that point in time, if you're having a little bit of a struggle finding something, the costume pieces or whatever, that's a good opportunity to bring that up to the director. I also use my cell phone. I'm one of these people where I'll walk into like a Savers or a Salvation Army, and I find something that I think might work, and I grab it off the rack and I hang it somewhere, and I push other things aside, and I take a picture and then text it to the director and say, what do you think? Is this worth me buying?
You've touched on it, Ellie, about finding costumes. Where do you find costumes in the event that you're not building a costume yourself?
Well, step one is we go upstairs into the LTM attic. And that attic, you got to go there several times because stuff is squished into all of those racks where you think you've spent an hour upstairs and you go, oh, well, I found a few things. But inevitably, you go up a week later and you go, why didn't I see this last week? It's almost like there were little fairies that sometimes put pieces of clothing there that you missed 2 weeks ago when you were up there.
Do you have any favorite haunts that you go to when you have to look for a costume that you can't make or isn't readily available?
I go to thrift stores.
A lot of shows, I will just go to thrift stores.
I go to Salvation Army.
Goodwill.
I go to Savers.
I go to Pluto's Closet a decent amount.
Different groups that are around.
I need to pull from stocks available to us via the connections that the costuming community in community theaters, specifically in Connecticut, has.
Not Moonyean, help.
And then we go to Moonyean's warehouse and we rent a lot of things from her also, especially for our musicals.
Now, Moonyean, you do have, that shop, that warehouse that you can draw from, but there are times when not everything is there.
We have a really nice community theater group of, that a lot of people are willing to lend or rent cheaply. And I mean, the Lady and the Leopard is a huge warehouse that costume selection was left to us by Dr. Solveig Pfluger, and her mission was just to help community theater groups. And so her son and I have continued that legacy. And, we rent to all of the community theaters and schools around, and very inexpensively. I mean, we're not a business that makes money. I mean, that's not our role, really.
I have a favorite story.
Yes.
So Pat and I were working together on Oklahoma, and they wanted a dream scene. So there were these 4 women who were supposed to come out as can-can girls. And so we found some skirts up at Moonyean's warehouse, but we couldn't find 4 bustiers that were identical to fit our 4 girls. So Pat and I are coming home from that, and I'm going, oh my God, Pat, what are we going to do? And she looks at me and she says, we're going to go to that sex shop in Manchester. I said, you mean VIP? And she said, yeah. I said, okay. So I told her how to get there. And
you knew the way. Okay.
We go walking into VIP, and I've got a notebook in my hand, and they come up to us and say, can we help you? And we said, yes, we'd like to look at bustiers, but we need 4 identical ones. And I said, oh, and I've got the measurements here that I need. Well, bottom line, they were asking too much money. We couldn't afford it in our budget, and we ended up going to one of those pop-up Halloween costume shops. And
Oh.
we got 4 bustiers there, and you know, Pat embellished them, and we got those costumes done. So,
That is
we'll
funny.
go anywhere looking for our costumes.
You have touched on the next question, and so has Moonyean, and that is the question of budget. How does the budget affect how you're going to costume a show?
It's everything.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have enough money to do what you need to do, you've got to scale back. Sometimes, you know, you would think, well, oh, I'm doing a period costume show, but you know, I can't go to Goodwill and find a period costume. But if you know your shapes and you know, you can sometimes put things together or only have to make partially, so you save a lot of money on the materials and stuff. If you can start with something, start with a wedding gown. When I did Beauty and the Beast, I started with a wedding gown that I dyed and refigured it. I, you know, changed it and so that it was the right period for the show I was doing.
Again, you can be very, very crafty and clever with going and grabbing stuff from dollar stores and then dressing them up with some fabric or little things like that. But again, designing a massive musical like My Fair Lady, like Dreamgirls or Mamma Mia on a smaller budget is tricky, and you have to definitely be clever about the way that you use the budget.
How do you deal with the budget constrictions?
That's very hard because if I would take Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia, when I first started and took the show, in a way of saying it, there was supposed to be the principals and just a certain amount of chorus. Okay, fine, with the budget that I got, that's fine, but they doubled the chorus. So we had 31 people on stage. And like I said, with the directors and what they want to see, now you're not dressing 10 to 15 people, you're dressing 31 people. So we ended up making 200 and something costumes in that show from scratch. And some of the fabrics were horrible because we couldn't pay the high price for the fabrics.
It's not just a matter of creativity with coming up with ideas for costumes and how they look, but creativity in other ways as well, right, Ellie?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, YouTube is a very good resource.
Yes.
There's a lot of crafty people out there. So if you want to figure out maybe how to make something, lots of times I go to YouTube and it's really amazing the things that people come up with. Yes, you just have to talk to a lot of people, and it seems that eventually you end up talking to somebody who does have a very ingenious idea. So YouTube is a very good go-to endeavor.
When you're in charge of costumes, do you talk to the other technical designers about how their design fits in with costumes? Moonyean, is that a consideration? How do you deal with that?
You have to. I mean, you have to be using the same color palette or one that I mean, if you put a costume in front of a curtain that's the wrong match, either sometimes the person just fades into it if the costume is too close to it, and sometimes they could clash with it. I mean, so that's really important. And the other thing that happens is lighting. Sometimes I haven't had that experience so much, but I know other people who've had experience where the lighting designer does their own thing, and all of a sudden the costume isn't the right color anymore.
Right.
You know, because of what the lighting is.
Ellie, how is it at LTM when you're working with the other technical designers?
Well, and again, usually we talk about this at production meetings,
Right.
and somebody will say, oh, well, the scenery for this particular act is going to be a lot of blue. So we certainly don't want any of our cast to blend into the background of the scenery. So we know that. And again, as Moonyean was saying, the lighting is really important. An all-white outfit sometimes gets too washed out with the lighting. So you have to be really careful.
My biggest thing is with choreography.
Yeah.
When you have all the color palette and all on the different people and whatever, and you see the choreography, and you see them all lined up there in the colors that you need. But during the choreography, something happens that all the pinks are in that corner. And it's like, oh, no, that can't be. So there you have to watch, say, okay, where will this person be? Where would that person be interacting with who, what, where? And it's, a lot of it has to be details as to watch where these people are going to go. Please don't change your cast on me. I don't have enough costume to change everybody. So that is one thing that you have to be on the ball to look, and with your choreographers and whatever, as to where, or your directors, as to where the people are going to be placed on stage at certain scenes, that you don't have everything clashing.
Putting on any show is a fully collaborative effort. Unless you are Julie Taymor and are doing direction and design and everything in between. But working with, as Pat said, working with choreographers to make sure that a specific garment can do what it needs to. The Morticia dress needs to be able to dance an insane tango, or working with lighting designers, because as it has been said, you can sometimes go on stage and expect one color from the fabrics that you picked, and based on lighting theory, which I still don't fully understand, and that's why I trust the lighting designers so much, a fabric can look entirely different, an entirely different color. Green is a very, very tricky color to light. And I remember for Games of Foot having a fight with the lighting designer. Not a fight. It was a spirited debate, because I had designed a very specific green look for one of the main characters, and he was just like, "Green? Really? Why? Why do you do this to me?" But it ended up working out. We figured it out. And it was a fabulous look.
Do you guys have any involvement in hair and makeup as part of a costume design?
No, not much. We bring somebody in, and we give a time period to that person of what we need. It depends. It depends on what. The only one that I think I was really involved of having something, but still I didn't do it, but I chose what we wanted. It was in the Marvelous Wanderettes. There was only four girls there, so that it was pretty much easy, and a lot of it was their own hair. But the big one, the big scenes and whatever, like Dream Girls, that we had to bring somebody in with all these, with all the wigs and all the scenes.
Now, Rob, do you ever get involved in hair and makeup as part of the costume design?
So it's funny. Unlike the rest of the ladies here, I spend a lot of time with it, because for me, again, I start my work from sketches, so I will do a costume design, but then maybe I don't add hair or whatever at first, but I will come back and start sketching jewelry and hair and makeup. If the person is going to need a big dramatic look, I will make sure that within my sketch, that's implied somehow. And then I often, I go back and I do full makeup plots, and I will look for hair tutorials or style wigs.
Now, you know there's going to be a quick change for the show. You've already read the script. You know there's going to be a quick change. How do you design a costume from the start so that you can accommodate the quick change?
Thinking about it from the most basic level, it's how do you remove struggle for the actor? Are you taking off all of the buttons and replacing it with Velcro or snaps?
Again, Velcro and whatever.
Putting in some Velcro or magnets or something that you can just pull off.
Is it a zipper? Can you do a zipper?
I'm in the process right now of doing a show in Elizabethan era. So you're talking laces and bodices and all of that, which are horrible to have to try to get on and off. So sometimes you have to put in little hidden zippers and kind of just fake the lacing.
Or when you're dealing with zippers, in a way of saying it, you still put basically your zipper in the center of your dress or whatever, but you cut somewhere, if you can, cut down the side and put Velcro. So it's easier just to open the whole dress than to try to fiddle with a zipper.
Snaps and Velcro are a quick change's best friend.
You know, the only time that I ran into something was in Next to Normal. We had our actress was on stage. She was in a hospital, and then she came off stage. And what I did was go back on stage with wearing a different outfit.
Well, a lot of quick changes require underdressing or overdressing.
It's over or underdressing.
Underdressing, you will put a costume that you're going to be wearing later in the show under something so that you can just disguise it.
So I made a Johnny that looked like a big oversized scrub top. And in the back, the seam, I had it all put together with Velcro.
Sometimes you have to put the costume a little bit bigger, you know, on them if it's something they're going to take off.
Sometimes you put on a big overcoat over something that's much shorter.
You just have to make sure that they fit together. So that's one of the easier ways to do it, where they've already got two costumes on. Not so great for the actor, but you know.
So when she walked off stage, we just went, peeled off all the Velcro, and she turned right around and went back on stage wearing the outfit that was underneath the Johnny.
In many things, if it's not hooks, if it's not Velcro or whatever, basically it's overdress or underdress.
A big moment of it is planning for a dresser to be backstage to help if things go wrong.
Yes, the dressers really need to be there for the dress rehearsals so that they can practice helping people change.
The hardest one was Dreamgirls, because you didn't tend only to one person on one side of the stage, you tended to 4 girls at the same time.
Once in a while you'll have a change where it needs 2 people and you've had to practice it because it's so fast and you've got so little time.
Sometimes you're getting changes as short as 30 seconds.
And the changes had to be fast, and there was so many changes, so many outfits to go from their beginning to their glory, and it was just unbelievable.
And being a dresser can be a very high pressure job.
So those are some of the things that we do.
What happens if a costume gets torn or damaged in the middle of a run, or you're in the middle of the show?
A lot of the time, once opening night happens, a designer might not necessarily be there every single night. Once opening happens, their job is technically done until strike, when we're clearing everything. But during performance, we may not be there. So the ideal is to have some crew members who have some basic sewing skills there to, if something tears, quickly sew it up, glue it up if necessary. Sometimes things can't be sewn up in time and they need to go on stage immediately, and it's sometimes too big of a rip. If it's a small rip, you can sometimes wait till intermission in the first act or until the actor has some kind of break when you can deal with it properly.
I have a costume incident when I wasn't actually the costume designer on the show. I was playing Vera in MAME, and I had this very well fitted suit that had a peplum, and it turned out we had gotten the material from a warehouse in Springfield and apparently it had been there a very long time. So I guess it was somewhat not what it should have been. And I sat down and I felt the whole side of my skirt just go. And it turned out, I mean, the material had just given way. So it went right on the seam line, but you couldn't re-sew it. So we were back there, we duct taped the whole inside of the costume for me to get back on stage with it.
That's what happened also in the guy's zipper.
Right. Dream Girls.
Just before he went up. So we put black electrical tape in his zipper, and it's like, can't touch this. It's just like, okay. I mean, you're there, we're there. We're all saying, no, I'm not doing it. No, I'm not. So finally, I caught my husband in the corridor, and I said, get in his pants and put it. It was like everybody was just so embarrassed to try. We should know this stuff happens, but we had to put electrical tape for just that scene so he could go up and then come down. It was like not even 2 seconds, but still he had to have his pants.
And I'll just elaborate a little bit more on the pant incident that Pat was talking about. So the man was wearing tuxedo pants. So once the show started and everybody was in the auditorium, I ran up to the attic, and I think God was with us because I found another pair of tuxedo pants with the right waist size, which was a total miracle in itself. But then downstairs and I measured the inseams, and I'm like, oh my God, we got to take the hem of the pants up 6 inches. So, inside out, sometimes you have to let go of the seam a little bit if you're going to shorten a pair of slack legs that much. And Pat comes running in at intermission and says, I understand we got a problem with these pants. What do I do? What do I do? I said, I'm hemming one leg. I said, get over here with those black thread over there and come over here and shorten the other leg. So here we are, intermission, the two of us in the green room, crazy, right? Shortening the leg for those pants.
What was your favorite or most challenging show to costume?
One of my favorite ones that I actually did, but was Titanic. And because we were doing the ensemble version of that, so that means 20 people doing a show that's normally done by 45 people. So everybody is playing multiple roles. And in the opening scene of Titanic, if you've never seen it, it's about a 20-minute sequence of all the various people getting onto the Titanic, going onto the Titanic. So in the beginning of it, you see all the sailors and bringing on the food and all the other things. And then you see the first class passengers come on and the second class passengers and the third well, all of these people played multiple roles. So somebody is a deckhand in the very beginning of the sequence and has to go off and become a first class passenger or a third. There were some people that changed 5 times in that 20-minute sequence, that one number. So, layering and figuring out, okay, who's coming on next and who isn't. And it was tough.
Ellie, your favorite or most challenging show to costume?
I think, the last show we did, Mamma Mia, that was very, very challenging. And I think a lot of it was basically just the size of the cast. and the fact that we created a lot of the costumes from scratch.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, not only was it a lot of work creating all the costumes, but it was a Herculean effort just to keep track of everything.
Pat, your favorite or most challenging show?
The one that I liked the best because I could really choose ahead time was Is He Dead? I really, really loved that play. It's with the scenery. It's what was on the picture of the gleaning that was painted by this, that brought into the costumes that I chose, sometimes not knowing what the colors were of the stage and whatever, but what I picked out, it was like I just got it out of the picture. And then when we put it together and we said, oh, wow, look at that. It matches the pictures in the frame. So to me, that was very satisfying.
Okay, Rob, what was your favorite or most challenging show to costume?
So, favorite show? I mean, I'm kind of torn between Games Afoot and Murder on the Orient Express. They were both just so much fun. I love the 1930s specifically as an era, so getting to design 2 1930s plays like basically consecutively as season openers was amazing.
Well, this brings us to the end of our show, and I have to say all of you have been delightful and not only informative, but also very entertaining. You've given us a peek behind the curtain at what happens during a show in costumes. So thank you very much for being part of this. And if you have any questions about anything we talked about in this video or topics you'd like to see discussed, you can email us at bts@cheneyhall.org. To find out when our new videos are posted, you can go to www.cheneyhall.org/YouTube and on Facebook at Little Theatre of Manchester. Links to all these, as well as our other social media pages, are in the description box below.
Behind the scenes.